High fly ball into right field. She is gone. In a year that has been so improbable, the impossible has happened. This one by Mattingly. Oh, hang on to the roof. Goodbye, home run. Don Mattingly. Tuck waits one. Deep left field. Down the line. That ball is out of here. Out of
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Tablesetters covering all things Major League Baseball. As always, I'm Steve. Join my tag team partner, Devin. What's going on, man?
What's up? What's up? Episode 80 here. Hard to believe that we're all the way at episode 80. We've said a lot of times we've been lucky enough to get some pretty cool guests on here. I got to say, this one's extra cool for me, and I think for you as well, Steve, as two guys in their 30s, someone we grew up watching. So we're psyched for this one.
So no warming up the bullpen. We got a great guest today on Tablesetters. Jack Wilson, a longtime MLB shortstop and a fan favorite during his years with the Pittsburgh Pirates, known for his elite defense and leadership on the field. He spent 12 seasons in the bigs and brought a relentless work ethic to every clubhouse he was a part of. Since retiring, he stayed deeply connected to the game, coaching at the high school and college levels, working with USA Baseball, now managing the Greeneville Flyboys in the Appalachian League. He's also a proud father of Jacob Wilson, a top 10 pick in the 2023 draft, who's already making an impact as the Athletics' everyday shortstop. Jack, it's so great to have you. Welcome to Tablesetters.
Hey, thanks, guys. Thanks for having me. Man, you guys dug in, got your homework done on that one. That was that's a very humbling intro. That was awesome.
Well, Jack, let's start by looking back at your own big league career. As Steve mentioned, you spent 12 seasons in the majors, 9 with the Pirates. And a lot of those years with the Pirates were during a time of transition for the Pirates. What did Pittsburgh mean to you as a player and a person? And are there certain teammates or moments from that run that still resonate with you?
Yeah, man, I loved every minute of being in Pittsburgh. They were blue collar people, hardworking people, and that kind of fit the game that I was taught growing up. Played the game hard, you played the game right, you played the game respectful. And so, gosh, I was 23 years old, never been on the East Coast before, and kind of got the opportunity. I got traded. I got drafted by the Cardinals, so I got traded over to the Pirates when I was in AA, and they really didn't have a shortstop in the system, and Pat Mears was coming off a pretty big hand injury, so I kind of got the HOV lane to the show, and I had to take my lumps there, but the people were amazing. I loved being a Pirate. It was a very sad day for us when we got traded, and I love my teammates there. We didn't have the best teams as far as like record and stuff, but I wouldn't trade those 9 years for anything because we still have group chats with all the guys from those years. We still stay in touch. And we were talking, I think we had 200 or 300 lost seasons, and it was tough showing up the ballpark, but we were all pretty young. It was a team that didn't sign a lot of free agents. We brought a lot of guys up maybe a little bit too early in those times that were prospects that we kind of just fast tracked because they were probably cheaper. And, but those kids were great. They played hard. They played the game right. We had really good clubhouse chemistry. It's just when it came down to it, we could put up runs. We had a couple of years. We had some good offense. But pitching didn't work out so well. We had some young pitchers that went through some tough times, and sometimes we didn't score enough for them, and it happens. So, but like I said, I cherish my time as a Pittsburgh Pirate. I still resonate with them. They were the only team I actually paid attention to until Oakland, or the Athletics now, but they were still Oakland when they drafted Jacob, and then all of a sudden we're just huge Oakland A's fans. So, but I love my time. I get back to every now and then. It's going to be a very emotional year this year because the Pirates are the Athletics are traveling to Pittsburgh and PNC Park at the end of September, and we have a lot of family coming out. I think that's going to be a pretty emotional time for us as a family, with how many games that he's seen there, how many times he's played in the little family game with plastic bats when he was a little kid. So it's just it's an amazing place to play. It's an unbelievable sports town, very underrated sports town with the Penguins, the Steelers, and the Pirates. There's a lot of really good history there, a lot of amazing players from all the different sports. So just doesn't get enough. The Pirates get tough. We had tough years, and then we were really good in 2002, 12, 13, 14, 3 straight years in the playoffs, and then kind of back down a little bit. So hopefully they get back up there because I really like their squad this year. They just gotta kind of get over some humps.
We actually found a letter you had wrote to the fans of Pittsburgh, I guess, when you were leaving. I'll just read a little excerpt here. It says, 9 seasons, 3 kids, and 26 double play partners later, my time in Pittsburgh has come to an end. I think back over the years and feel extremely proud of my time there, regardless of the team's record or statistics. I put on the Pirates jersey every day with pride alongside players I was honored to call teammates. And it goes on from there. Clearly passionate about that city. I have to ask you, there is some unrest in Pittsburgh amongst the fans, especially this year. We've seen some little bits of protests and calling out the ownership and Bob nutting. And I think the frustration is because they see these gems in front of them, like a Paul Skeens and an O'Neill Cruz, and want them to build around them. What are your thoughts on the ownership situation or how they go about their business currently?
It's tough, because I'm not as plugged in, obviously, as I used to be as a player. I had a really good relationship with Bob. He was very cordial and nice to me. You don't really get a lot with the owner. It's more the GM and sometimes the president. But whenever we were, in a situation we were together, whether it was a charity dinner or something like that, he was very, very nice to me and my family. And when it comes to running a business, I don't know what goes into running a baseball club or anything. So it's hard for me to say, like, if they're doing a good job or bad job. It's like, all right, sometimes we don't win baseball games and sometimes we don't lock up guys, trade guys that end up being great. But I was like, when it comes down to it, like, those guys have jobs and they've been hired to do a job. And sometimes it doesn't work out, and unfortunately, sometimes if it goes on for years, then you start getting the things you're talking about, the unrest and the protests and stuff like that. But all I can say is personally, I really liked Bob, and I think that there's a situation there like, okay, you got to want to win, you got to spend money. And they started to do that as I was leaving. You saw the Pirates really dive into the draft when they started drafting. They drafted Pedro Alvarez and they drafted, Cole, and like those were huge signings because before that, we really didn't spend a lot of money in the draft. It was kind of like the cheapest player that was available at that pick. It was never like the best player. And as players, we followed the draft in the big leagues. We wanted to see if we were going to get some really cool college stud coming up. And then they when they started doing that in the draft is when they started getting those guys in the big leagues and they were really good. So tough is you got to hit on the draft. Pretty easy when you get to hit on Paul Skeens. Tough. It's pretty easy. You go out and get Paul Skeens, and usually definitely a guy that you can build around. Keep him healthy. Guys like O'Neill Cruz, guys like they locked up Brian Roberts. That was a great signing, I thought. I think he's he's a really good switch hitter, left fielder, all-star guy you can build around. You already signed up to Bron Hayes. It's like, okay, do your prospects and their drafts, do those end up working out? Because when you're a small market team, that's what you have to do. You got to have your drafts work and you got to make really good trades, and those guys got to. So it's one of those things. And in 2012, 13, 14, you had a young Andrew McCutchen, Neil Walker coming through. Your draft, Pedro Alvarez was at third base. Your drafted guys came through and were quality, high-end big leaguers. And then you just kind of fill in the spaces like a Francisco Liriano. You throw him in there. You throw in what's the big righty they got that was Burnett. You throw in Burnett, righty, and you build a team around those guys. And I think that's kind of what you wait for. Are these prospects going to pan out? Are our draft guys going to pan out? And the difference is, like, those were college guys when you draft them, except for Neil Walker and Andrew. They spent their time in the minor league. So they do. I really liked their draft last year with Connor Griffin. He's going to be a stud. It's just going to take a couple of years for him to get there, but he's going to be a real deal. I had him with USA. He's amazing. And even their second pick, I'm drawing on a blanket now. He's a local kid that was here in California, and he's amazing too. I think they're turning him into a pitcher, but that's what has to happen when you're a small market. You got to hit on the drafts. You got to make really good trades, and guys got to play hard, and they got to win. So it's not usually all on, say the owner or the GM. Sometimes a lot of it's on us to play good baseball.
So turning back the clock to 2004, which was a massive year for you, hit 308, 201 hits, 41 doubles, 12 triples, and 11 home runs. One of them was an inside the park home run. Your first and only was July 2nd, 2004, which I just watched the highlight. Electric atmosphere, the first of a doubleheader. All-star selection, Silver Slugger, and you were the first Pirate shortstop since Honus Wagner to reach 200 hits in a season. Not just production, that's historic, man. So for you, looking back to 2004, mechanically, mentally, otherwise, what led to that season? Like, was it just one of those things, like it was lightning in a bottle that rode for 162?
What was funny? When I broke into the big leagues, I was mainly an offensive player. For my entire time in the minor leagues, I was a hitter. I was a 320, I think, somewhere in there, 320 career hitter. My first year in the minor leagues, I had 370. That I followed it with 340. Like I had always hit my way to promotion. And then the defense was okay. It was athletic, but it was very raw. A lot of errors. I think I had 30 errors in A ball. So I can make the really cool play, but had trouble with the routine. And so the more I played, the more I matured to getting better at that. And then I got to the big leagues and was like, gosh, dang, these pitchers are really freaking good. I'm like, gosh, it's really hard to hit here. And then I'm looking around my rookie year and I'm like, well, if you become a really good defensive shortstop, you can play a long time. I'm looking around the league, guys that are playing a long time and they're really good with the gloves. So I was like, all right, I'm just going to focus not so much on hitting like I used to. I'm going to focus on perfecting the shortstop thing, like trying to be like the best defender and just really roll in. And so for 3 years, I did that. The entire offseason was defense, defense, defense. I'll swing a little bit, but it's mastering the ground ball, mastering the read of the hop, stuff like that. And it worked out really good, so I stayed with it. And then in 2004, that offseason, I was just tired of not getting hits, honestly. And I literally switched it. I went back to a full offensive routine. I was like, all right, I feel pretty good about defense. I still want to keep that going, but I'm going to start being more aggressive. I'm going to expect 2 hits out of myself because my entire life I expected 2 hits. And if I went 1 for 4, I was very upset. But in those first 3 years, if I was 1 for 4, I was like, sweet, I got one. I played good D. And I'm like, I'm going to flip this mindset. And then from spring training all the way through that year, it was just relentless. I'm just getting hits. I just want to get hits. And it just kept swinging. And, it ended up, a lot of things fell my way. You get 200 hits. Not all of them are really hard, swinging bunts, little bloops, flares here and there, So it was one of those years. It was just, like you said, it was magical. It was just like things fell and I stayed healthy the entire year. It was actually my worst defensive year, so it wasn't all great. I think I had 17 errors that year, which is the most I had ever had. But I played the most games I'd ever had too. So it was amazing. It was a fun ride. I got to go to the All-Star game and meet a lot of cool people and be in that atmosphere. It was amazing. And I look back and cherish that year and the time the teammates were rooting for me to get 200 hits, all that stuff. It was just really cool memories.
You mentioned being the defensive side of the ball. You were widely respected in Major League Baseball for the defensive side of the ball for a long time. What is that preparation? You alluded to it, like to get to that point, whether it be daily preparation or what led up to that point where you felt like that consistent, confident defender at the Major League level?
For me, I didn't do drills at all, very rare. I just did a million reps. Like that was my thing. I wanted to make fielding a ball muscle memory, complete muscle memory. It's very easy for a hitter to put a ball on a tee and hit a line drive up the middle, just because it's muscle memory. That's what we've done our entire lives. Our swing plays, we hit the ball, we hit it hard up the middle. We can do that. I wanted to make fielding like that, so that's why I just took every rep, every type of where you could field the ball, what angle you could throw it at, what read was it, overspin, backspin, everything. And the more I did it, I felt like when it happened in the game, I would just go. And I wouldn't have to ever think about it. I just knew if I'm at this spot and my feet are here, I know I have to throw from this arm angle to get it there. And then there are 100 different variations of where I am and where my arm angle needs to be. And then if I did enough reps, then I never had to think about it. I just did it. My body would just react. Just as much as I see fastball, I swing fastball. And I try to barrel it up and I think it should go to left center. It's the same thing. When I see a ball hit, and I feel it where my feet are, where I'm located on the field, how fast the ball is coming, how fast the runner is equals this, and that equation plays out every ground ball. So I just wanted it was a lot of ground balls for sure.
So then in game, between pitches, is there a lot going on in your mind as far as you're still thinking about exactly where the ball is going to go if it goes to a certain spot, or does that become more automatic?
I'm anticipating. I know my pitcher. I know what speed he throws, how his ball moves. I know the hitter. And if I know the hitter, him plus this pitch equals I think the ball is going to go here. So I'm anticipating. So I was able to gain range by anticipating where I thought the ball was going to be before. If he swings if they throw this pitch here and he swings this way like he normally would, this ball has to go here. And I'm just taking the odds. And I'm almost leaning in that direction in my prep step, and I'm going to gain. My thing was I was really good in the hole. If you hit in the 6 hole and I was anticipating there, I can make some plays there. And they were like, wow, you cover a lot. I'm like, I actually don't. I was never fast. I was quick. and I'm able to get there quickly, but I'm also cheating to that spot, kind of leaning as I get into my prep step to allow myself to gain like 2 steps to my right before the ball's even hit. So that was kind of my thing. And nowadays it's hard watching this game now because they look, in between batters, they pull up their little card that says, okay, I play here and I stay here. Well, back in the day, I was very free to play wherever I felt I should play. And I could move my guys wherever I wanted to, because I was the shortstop's the centerpiece. So if I think I should move 2 steps to my left, I'm telling my third baseman, I need you 2 here, and I'm pushing my second baseman 2, so that we're all moving together. And that gave me full range on what I thought that pitcher plus that hitter would do in that situation. So a lot of that stuff going in the head, and it's even easier to do now. They got the speaker in the helmet saying slider away. I'm like, oh my gosh, instead of like, sign after outs, or hey, if there's a guy on base, we're doing this, this, and this. And I had to remember that. And it's like, all right, I think it's a fastball away. I think, just because all the pitchers' intricacies on how they like to call pitches with men on base. Now it's just a speaker. I'm like, man, I would have loved that. I wouldn't have to be all that stuff and be like, fastball away. All right, he's going to hit it here. And then I would just move there. It'd be great. But it's just a little bit different game now.
So looking at 04, you mentioned the 17 errors. I went back and looked at the Baseball Reference back of the card. You led the league in double plays, 129, and 492 assists or put out. So when the ball came to you, the outs were had. And like watching the postseason last year, not open up old wounds as a Yankee fan, when you have the opportunity to have these guys and not let an out go to waste, that's so important. And in 04, despite the errors, like you said, 17 errors, those 129 double plays you turn, like that is so valuable that a lot of people don't even consider when they're looking at the back of a baseball card.
Yeah, I was very blessed. I think that was the year I had the 2004 might have had Jose Castillo at second base. I think it was before Freddie moved over. I think Freddie Sanchez was playing third maybe, or he came up late that year, I believe. But I was really blessed to have some really good double play partners. I think that has a lot to do with it. A lot of my double play partners were actually former shortstops, and those guys are super fun to work with, super easy to work with. So a lot of the credit goes on them, because you got to have that. I mean, when I was with Jose and especially with Freddie, I mean, it was like the same person. Like I knew exactly where he wanted it. He knew where I was coming from, what angle it was coming from, how hard it was coming. And when you're that locked in up the middle, like we were those years with Jose and Freddie, you're going to turn a lot of double plays because it's just we knew each other so well. I mean, I played high school baseball with Freddie Sanchez, and then we were in the big leagues together for like 4 years up the middle. So a lot of the credit goes to those guys being able to spin it so well like they could. Jose Castillo had an absolute cannon. Freddie was really smooth and was really quick, but Jose, when he went back, man, he had an unbelievable arm, so he could let it rip. So we got a lot of double plays on his arm as well. So a lot of fun working with those guys, and all I wanted to do was try to take care of those pitchers. If they made their pitch, got their ground ball with a guy on first or second, I was like, man, I was trying to turn true for him so badly.
So after your time in Pittsburgh, you went on to play with Seattle and Atlanta. So those later years, what did it teach you about the game and yourself? And did it eventually shift your leadership and want to be taking on this coaching role that you find yourself in now?
I realized I was a really crappy utility player. That's what I realized. I was not a good second baseman. I think I spent my entire life on one side of the infield where the ball turns the same way on every ball that's pretty much hit. Unless that righty gets really inside the ball, the lefty that's going to hit it to the shortstop is going to turn the same way that a righty gets out in front. So the ball's always spinning that way, and it's really easy to kind of read. When I went to second, I just felt like I couldn't get a read off the bat. I couldn't move. I felt stuck. I was a bad second baseman in Seattle. I felt terrible because I didn't play well there. And then towards the end of my career, I was a utility guy, and I was a high energy guy. And for me to sit there for 6-7 innings and just like pace around and like hit in the cage and then go out there and try to play, I was just not very good at it. So it was a pretty easy decision to shut it down. When I was in Atlanta, I was like, man, I'm not built for this. And I got 3 kids at home that could use dad around more often. I got a kid who loves baseball. I got 2 girls that love soccer, which is my original love, was playing soccer. So I think I'll be good just going home. I just wasn't very good at I felt like I had some good years in Pittsburgh, and I played well and it matched well. And I just, once I left there, it was just never the same. And it was unfortunate because I really wanted to be a great Mariner and a great Brave for them, but it just didn't work out that way.
Well, since retiring, you've stayed involved in the game, coaching at Thousand Oaks High School, Grand Canyon University, Team USA, and now in the Appalachian League. What's your day-to-day like now? And just tell us more about how you're staying connected to the game of baseball.
Yeah, I fell in love with coaching. I felt like I owed it. I got so much from the game, with my family and being able to get a couple contracts and play such a long time and learn from the best coaches in the world in the big leagues. I felt like, kind of to give back, to give back to the game and start learning how to coach, and you got to learn how to coach. It's so much different than playing. I started, which was really good. I started, Jacob was 11. So I got to start with them at 11 years old, then 12, 13, and then all the way through high school and actually into college. So you had these adjustments you had to make at a coach every time you got to a certain age, because as boys get older, they're going to be a little bit different, and you got to be able to handle that. And this generation of baseball player is a lot different than when we grew up. It really is. Like, you can't raise your voice really, because then they kind of just check out. And with transfer portal and like transferring, they're just like, oh, I don't like you, I'm out. So it's just a little bit different on how you have to approach it. I felt like if I could find a way to just look at you in a certain way, and like I was not happy with what you were doing, I felt like I would get more reaction from a more positive reaction from the player, where you're just like, really? Like, we're doing this right now? Like, this is how we're going to run this drill? Instead of just being rah-rah, like, why are we here? We're wasting our time. I just kind of like, hey, I think we should just start over, because I don't think this is very good. I think you guys could agree. So you started communicating with them rather than yelling at them and telling them what to do. And it was just a better way to communicate with this generation of baseball players. So I figured that out in my high school years and into college and stuff. But that's my dream, is to be a college coach. I went back and finished my degree after I retired. So I graduated from Grand Canyon University on their online program in 2017, knowing that one day I want to be a college head coach. And now my daughter here in Arizona is a junior. She'll graduate next year. And that's when I'll hopefully start doing interviews and stuff like that. So being in Greeneville is amazing, because it gives me college experience with these college baseball players I have in that summer league. And it's an amazing league run by MLB with amazing front office people. And it's an awesome league to be a part of. So I'm about a month away from taking off and living in Greeneville, Tennessee for 2 months, and loving being on the field again. So I just kind of watch A's Texas 1-1 in the middle of the fifth. I just watch A's games, do a couple lessons every now and then with some buddies, kids that I know. And then once June hits, get on the field every day for 2 months. And that's where it's like my happy zone.
So there's so many conversations about how to evaluate players, especially specific positions, and everyone has the new metrics to look at. And there's the old school mentality of just using the eye test. For you, when you're evaluating, let's talk about shortstops in general. Obviously, since Jacob's a shortstop, you played that role so well. What separates the good shortstop from the truly special in your eyes? What separates them above everybody else?
Their feet, definitely the way they move. You got to move differently if you got heavy feet, you're a third baseman. You got to have really quick feet. You got to move you got to be an athlete for sure. You got to be able to throw from all the different arm angles. If you're a shortstop and you only throw over the top, you're going to have problems adjusting in this game, because that is, other than catcher, it is the hardest position to play because of the difficulty of the throws. I mean, the throws are all different angles. I mean, if you go in the hole, that's a 50-yard throw. If you go deep in the hole, you got to get rid of it quick. You got to have the feet to set yourself up to get there, to get them down to make the throw. It is a very tough position to play. And when you say shortstop, like when I'm looking at a guy, I can immediately say that's a shortstop or that's not a shortstop, just probably within 10 ground balls, just because of their actions, how their feet move. Can't be slow-footed. You got to be able to move. You got to be quick, and you got to be able, like I said, to be open to throw to all different arm angles at any time. And so they're pretty. It's almost like a catcher. You can literally look at those guys and be like, okay, that's a guy I got to make a first baseman. He's catching now, but he's going to have to play first, because those two positions, especially if you want to move up or even play college, you got to be really good defensively to stay there. You can't out-hit a bad defense. So those two positions, you got to be locked and loaded, and then you hope to that catcher, that shortstop, then you hope that second baseman and that center field, that full up the middle. If that's locked down, you can build out from there.
You kind of alluded earlier to the differences between the modern era and maybe your era, as far as, I mean, we could go in a lot of different directions as far as that goes, but let's talk about development. I think it would be fair to say you came up in an era where development was built maybe more on repetition, instincts, learning through experience. Your son Jacob's path has been different at a different time, obviously, where we're obsessed with data and analytics. They look at a lot of video and specialized training. From your perspective, how has player development evolved over the years?
I think in pro baseball, it's definitely evolved. I don't think it has very much in college. Um, I'm really big on, like we just talked about. I think when you even start talking about lifting, like every position should be lifting differently depending on their position. Like catchers and left fielders should not be lifting the same. And my time in college and talking to catchers, like they're all and talking to players that I have in summer, they're all in the same program. And it makes no sense to me that a center fielder and a third baseman are lifting the same when they're being asked to do different things with their bodies. So let's maximize that. So college, I think, is still behind. And I think once you're a professional baseball player, they're definitely gonna single you out, look at your body. They're gonna hook you up with all these little electrons or whatever. They're gonna see how you move. They're going to look at your flexibility. They go all in because with a 20-round draft, you only got 20 guys each year that you're adding on. You want those guys to succeed and make it through. So they're going to put a lot of science and a lot of stuff into getting the best out of you. So I think it's very individualized in pro ball, which is exactly perfect. And then, at that point, you just try to enhance what that person can do. And I think, in Jacob's case, I'm walking through it and a lot of it's stuff's new for me, and I sent what he wanted to work out this offseason. And I said, you can't work out with us, which is usually a bunch of my agents guys. We have a facility and we train. I'm like, you need to go to the A's, like this, because they want you to fill out. They want you to be a certain way. And I'm like, the best way to do that is to not come to us, just go to them the entire offseason. And I went an entire offseason for the first time, not throwing my kid BP. And it was like the saddest thing ever. I was like, what happened to my connection with my guy? You know what I mean? I was just like, I didn't take ground balls with him. I didn't throw him BP because he was doing everything with the A's. It was kind of sad. I was bummed, but it was the best thing for him because, they specifically wanted him to be a certain way and what they're trying to build with him. And it worked out really good. He gained about, I think 9 or 10 pounds and he looks good and he feels good and he's healthier. So I really like what the A's have done with him and his body and what they're pouring into him. And he's always been very coachable and very receptive to everything. So it's kind of, it's been a perfect fit. Like, seeing it from my point of view and asking him a ton of questions so I get to learn from how different it is now from back in the day. I mean, even before my time, you didn't even work out before you went to spring training. Spring training was like the first time you started hitting and stuff. And then when I was coming through, you were working out months ahead of time to be ready for spring training. And now it's pretty similar. Like I always said, Halloween, the day after Halloween was like the first time you're really starting to kind of get active again. You want to give yourself a break. And then right after Thanksgiving, then it's full go because you got about 2.5 months to go and you're really working on your body and you start implementing baseball stuff. But it's been fun to watch and fun to learn about. I'm not a huge analytic guy. I don't like it very much, but I see the value in some of the things that's there. But, Steve mentioned old school mentality, and that's eye tests, baseball in general, the baseball game. So like a lot of that, I've actually had to turn some of the analytics I tell Jake, don't even pay attention to it because it doesn't matter to me. It shouldn't matter to you. Just keep playing your game because obviously you got drafted 2 years ago. They liked you enough and you're already in the big league. So you're doing something right. So some of the stuff I don't really understand, but some of the stuff I definitely think has value.
Let me ask you about the video side of things, because when we watch these games, we see, someone taking at bat and then they're back in the dugout. And the first thing they're doing a lot is looking at the iPad. And so I'm a Mets fan. I watch Mets baseball pretty much daily. And Keith Hernandez, anytime he sees that, I've heard him comment so many times that it drives him a little crazy to see that. And he wishes they would just talk to each other more. He said for him, the best thing to do is talk to the other guys that have taken an at bat against this pitcher and see what they think. He almost seems to understand it more for pitchers than he does for hitters. Your thoughts on the immediate, like looking at video time after time in the dugout during a game?
Oh, all in. We did it. I had it in my time. It just wasn't on a tablet. It was on a computer screen behind the dugout. So we've had it for ever since we switched from VHS, which was like 2001, 2002, to full digital. We just didn't have pads. You would walk down to the dugout and I wouldn't do it right after. I would wait till like I went out and played defense and came back. And then every now and then pull it up and just kind of see, because here's the thing. I might ground out on a fastball away, right? And I ground on a fastball away. Okay, they're throwing me away. Sure enough, they were setting up in, and I had no idea. Now, if I don't go back and look at that, all right, they're their whole time they wanted to attack in. He just missed his spot. But I wouldn't have known that if I didn't go back and look and see, oh, he was actually trying to throw a sinker in there and he just pulled it. So I think there's a lot of value. I don't know, like, I like it being not seen like we had it, where you're not, it seems like it might look a little selfishly if you go in and you just got out and you're not really watching the game. You're just sitting on an iPad, just kind of like looking at your at bat, like take some time or even take the tablet, go behind. So I see Keith didn't have it. He was VHS. They didn't have the technology to do that, but we had it and I loved it. Like I said, nobody saw it and you wouldn't know when I did it, but I would take some time, but I would definitely want to see where they were setting up. Did my hands fly out? Did something happen mechanically? So I definitely like the availability of it, but maybe not so much like I'm on the rail and I just got out and I've already got the iPad. Maybe behind the scenes would be great. Then keep.
I gotta ask you about Jacob. One thing I find fascinating about him, and this might have even been the post that you commented on when we actually first started having a dialogue. He's up there in chase percentage.
Mm-hmm.
Walk percentage is super, super low. I remember there was almost like comical celebration when he had his first walk a couple weeks ago. Yet the average, yet the average is super high, and it's not a one-time thing. This is how he's hit at all levels.
Right.
Explain that to someone on the outside. How does he pull that off? Because typically you see that kind of combination, and it doesn't really lead anywhere very good.
Well, chase rate is an imaginary it's fiction. And this is why I'll tell you it's fiction, because this is the one analytic that I cannot stand. So, and maybe you guys can help me out. All right. So as far as I know, the chase rate means it's outside of the zone. Is that right? So
yeah, that's what they say.
One piece of paper outside the zone of the zone is a chase, correct?
Right. Yeah.
Okay, good. Now, that zone how is that zone come to be? Is that calculated by an absolute perfect strike zone, right? 17 inches across, knees to belt.
Right.
So that's what the computer is saying.
Mm-hmm.
A chase rate would only work if it is applied to the umpire calling balls and strikes that day. Because the strike zone is not done by a computer. It's done by whoever's calling the strikes. So if Jim Wolf, who's my favorite umpire ever, who just was umpiring Jacob's game, which was the coolest thing, if he's a ball outside, then that's no longer a chase. That's a strike. And you guys watch baseball and you see guys get punched out on balls off the plate, up, outside of that little square that's there. Well, you probably should have chased because it's strike 3. So if the umpire who is creating the zone, if you say this guy has a tendency to go a ball out, then that chase rate needs to be 1 ball out, and then you actually get a real chase rate. So if a guy comes back and he's like, gosh dang, that's a ball off, and he's calling it, every hitter is going to swing at a ball off because they're going to strike at it if they don't. So that's in a situation. That's why chase rate means nothing, because there's a lot of good pitches to hit that are paper thin inside that you can get out in front of. But you're only going off the fact that a computer is saying that that's a chase, not the guy who's calling balls and strikes, which is way more important. So chase rate to me means nothing. And if you're a good type 2-strike hitter, like Jacob is, like Arise is, you're going to foul balls off that you get fooled at that are going to be chaseable, because pitchers are really good at throwing pitches that are nasty and break off the plate. And if you can foul those off to buy another pitch, you do want to be able to chase in that time. So that's why chase rate to me makes no sense unless you are giving me a zone from an umpire. This is what he calls, this is today's zone. Now, if you go out of that, you're chasing. That makes sense to me. Does that make sense to you guys? Does that make
It does. And that's why it's so important to have a baseball person interpreting the data. So often they'll take someone that is well-versed in the analytics and just be able to run a computer program, and they'll print it out and show it to somebody, and they don't have the baseball knowledge. They didn't play the game a lot of the times. They're just looking at numbers. And that's why you have this divide of, that's why I think it is a sweet spot of using the data to supplement the knowledge of the game, like you're saying, to make sure we're having an idea what's going on the field. So I agree with you. I mean,
the crazy thing is, in our video room where we have our screen set up to watch pitchers, back in the day, we had an entire spreadsheet of that umpire that's called at home plate and his tendencies. So we would not only study the thing, we'd look over at the chart and be like, oh, so-and-so's going today. He's giving, like, it looks like he's calling a good percentage inside to righties. And we have to know that, because now when I get to 2 strikes, I got to protect that. So we used to have that information as part of our studying process before a game to understand, like, okay, I don't want this guy punching me out on a pitch that his chart says he's a ball inside. Oh, well, the umpire is the one who's deciding it. So that's why I remember studying that chart going, okay, this is how he's going to pitch me, but this is how he's going to call. And I have to mix those two together to have some sort of approach. So that's the only one I hate. Everything else is cool. Whatever you want to do, exit velo, don't care. But that one drives me nuts.
Well, I think it's going to be paired with the ABS system in baseball eventually if we completely adopt that. And there is a huge contingent of baseball fans that are not a fan of it. I think when it goes against your team watching and it infuriates you, we've seen like every game you watch, there is usually an umpire that calls a ball out of the strike zone and frustrates you. And then there's the human element of baseball. We've seen it being used in independent leagues, and players do like it. We get too far into the analytics, and then like you don't want to rob the game of the soul that is the discussion of what's a good call and what's not. That's like Devin and I on here every week have conversations about how far is too far.
Well, I think the biggest thing is if you want to see a value of the player, watch them play baseball. Period. Don't look at like, because there's so many people that don't even watch and they just look at, it's this is unsustainable. Mm-hmm. You're like, wait a second, watch the guy, watch him play, watch like we used to do. We used to value what a guy used to do before all this is what kind of value did he bring to your team that day? And for me, like, that's what I put on Jacob. Everyone's like, exit velo. And I'm like, I'll tell you right now, I can get at 5 more miles an hour on Jacob's exit velo easily. But he's going to swing too hard. He's going to strike out a bunch. So he's going to hit 240. He's going to swing out of his pie hole. And when he hits it, it'll be 4 to 5 miles an hour because he's going to be swinging so hard. And then he's going to lose what makes him special. So I told him, like, don't even think about freaking trying to gain exit velo because you're also 23 years old. I'm assuming with genetics and how the body works, you're probably going to be stronger at 25 and at 28, and that exit velo is going to naturally go up just as much. If I look at you as a sophomore in college, your exit velo is going to be different than it is now. So I'm like, don't chase that stuff because people are like, oh, look at his exit velo. How could he be hitting this? So part of the time I have to combat this to him and like, bro, don't even try to think about that. Continue to do what you do, stay inside the ball. Because guess what? And you guys know this saying, and baseball people kind of forgot. Remember when we used to say good hitters get jammed because they stay inside the ball? I mean, if we're going on exit velo and how good guys are hit, how do we evaluate a Derek Jeter or a Rod Carew or even an Ichiro, by the way, who had so many infield hits that he just pounded into the ground sometimes because he was so fast? That guy was the brilliant at doing what he did so well, was putting the ball in play and kind of running out of the box. I played with him for 2 years. It was amazing to watch, but we would devalue some of the best hitters we ever had if we just went off of what their analytics was. Like Rod Carew was amazing, but that guy was inside the ball. Jeter was one of the best inside ball. Playing defense against him was horrible because he could pull it and then he could just shoot a freaking little blooper to right. You're like, gosh dang, how do you throw this guy? But that's a guy who stayed inside the ball, got jammed all the time, but he was 3,000 hits, So that's why I try to combat with these young players. Like, it's not all about the numbers. I do think there's a place for them, and it's good to show strength and exit velo and building. But a lot of it's like, man, just go play baseball and do your thing. Because the person that matters most is the guy making the lineup and the team deciding if you're a big leaguer that can help you win. As long as those guys believe in you, then nothing else matters.
So thinking back to Jacob's time at Grand Canyon and eventually with Team USA, was there a moment that you realized that he wasn't just a good player, that this could be something that to be top 10, maybe move fast through pro ball and then be where he is now with the Athletics?
I don't know. It was crazy. Like, it wasn't until his sophomore year of college that he was the best player on a team. Like, literally, in Little League all the way in Little League, like 11, 12, he was pretty freaking good. He was good. He was taller. But then in high school, it was just, we had some super stuff. We had Max Muncy, who was drafted by the A's that played. He played with Jacob. We had a guy named Charlie Somm, who was a USA guy. And we had Rock Riggio, he got drafted by the Yankees. They were all on the same high school team. I mean, it was pretty easy making that lineup out and winning games. So, he was one of those guys that was really, he had a very good skill set of playing the game, but he just wasn't strong in high school. He was getting real tall. He's like 6'3", which I have no idea where that came from. So he was like this baby giraffe. Like everything was kind of just all over the place. He was a good athlete and he could pick it. He was a really good defender, but like the ball didn't jump off his bat or anything. And then his senior year came around and it was like, ooh, things started to change. His arm came around. He was our closer. He was like 92, 93. And we're like, oh, arm's coming around. This is nice. And then first year of college was really good. Had a really good summer in Mankato in the Northwoods. And then that sophomore year, it was just like unconscious. Like everything started to come together. The body came in, it started to fill out, and then the ball just started jumping off his bat. And I was like, wow, this is getting pretty cool to watch. I'm like, man, he might get drafted like top 5, 6 round. And then he went to the USA trials for the national team. And I think that 1 week changed his life forever. That was the put him in the conversation of the best college players in the game. And what he did that week was, I watched it. It was unbelievable. I was there for the 18U, so I actually didn't get to see a lot of what he was doing because the college team was there at the same time, but they were different times than what we were doing. And my goodness, he just went crazy. He had like a couple homers. He had doubles. He led in every offensive category, and that was with Dylan Cruz and Jacob Gonzalez, like that whole ridiculous draft class from 2 years ago. And that's when I was like, oh, this is real. Like, for me, if I had to stand up there my sophomore year against all those, he was the only mid-major guy there. And it was like, here's this kid from the WAC going against LSU, going against, Ole Miss, like all these big schools. Ole Miss had just won the World Series, and he's facing the dudes of the dudes, and he's sharing the field with them, and he's hanging. And he was just, the coaches fell in love with him. He was just a baseball player, but he went after it. And then all the scouts were there, and they're like, who the heck is this dude? And I'm like, I don't even know. Don't ask me. I'm like, this dude, I mean, to hit 2 home runs off those elite arms that he did not see in the WAC, that was always going to be his thing. Can he hit really good pitching? Because he's not seeing that in the WAC conference. You might get a guy here and there on a Friday night at Sac State or something like that. That's pretty good. But you're not seeing Skeens. You're not seeing Louder. The guys that he has to face in these, and what's the guy from Tennessee too? The guy that just got called up from the Rockies.
Oh God,
Collander.
Yeah.
He's not like, and he went there and not only did he hang, he was one of the best guys there. And I was like, all right, this is pretty cool. Like, you're pretty good. And then I was like, man, you're way better than me. This is awesome. I'm like, yeah, man, whatever. I was like, it was funny too, because right around that time he made the national team. And he got the blue check from Twitter, and he was really excited. And he knew that I had been denied pretty much for 2 years on that blue check. And the second that Twitter found out that I was Jacob Wilson's dad, I got a blue check. So everything that you guys just rattled off, 2004, like meant absolutely nothing to Twitter. And I was Jacob Wilson's dad, so I got a blue check. It was great.
Well, let's so flash forward to then 2023 on the draft night. He's taken by the Athletics, obviously. What stands out to you now most about that moment? Did it remind you at all of your own draft night? Just take us back to that night.
I did not want to go to MLB. It was in Seattle. I hated Seattle because I just didn't play good, and I felt like I let the fans down. So I just have this thing about being in Seattle, and I was like, all right, get over it. It's not about you. My wife had to slap me around a little bit. But we were there when it happened, and we knew that there was the big 5. You had Skeens, Cruz, Langford, Clark, and Jenkins. And we knew that if those 5 went in the first 5, that the A's were going to take them at 6. So at that point, we're just sitting back behind stage. And as soon as the 5th name, which I think was Jenkins to the Twins, as soon as that hit, and I'm like, man, this is real. And his phone started going off. I'm like, this is real. And at the point, I was like, kind of an outside body experience. Because my draft, I was a 9th round pick, and there was no way to track the draft then. So I was in the middle of summer school. I took the day off, and I was just watching every Star Wars VHS tape I had on draft day to keep my mind off it. So I went through all 3 movies, had no idea where they were in the draft. There's no way to track it. And every phone call has got to be it. And it's Aunt so-and-so. You're like, stop calling. Like, I'm waiting for a call. And, so got the call from the Cardinals and was just, I think I signed that night. I went over to the local scouts sign. I was on a plane the next day, so it was just two completely different experiences. I was supposed to be a 15th to 20th round guy. I ended up going in the 9th somehow to the Cardinals. And I was like, all right, sweet. This is great. But, with the expectation that Jake, if the A's go somewhere else at 6th, then he was going to go to somewhere all the nuances of the draft. Everybody had their guy, that if he doesn't go 6, I think he goes 12 to the Angels or something. I don't know how it was going to work out, but it's just really surreal to look at and just see his journey all in that moment get to that point. That was pretty emotional for all of us because, if you saw him in high school, it was kind of the same way. If you saw me in high school, you wouldn't have said those are two guys that are going to be in the big leagues. That's not what you thought. You said there's some athletic guys and they play pretty good baseball and they'll probably be good college players, but you wouldn't look at us and be like, wow, those guys are going to make it. So I think it was really cool for him to be able to have that moment and for us to be there. We had a bunch of family. So still a very, very amazing time to look back on for sure.
So as far as the draft goes, Devin and I had this conversation when it came up last year, just about the presentation, how it's changed. And of course, we're just off the heels of the NFL draft. So how could you not compare about the pageantry? And I would love that for baseball. Is that something you think we can eventually get to a point where we can put the spotlight on baseball like the NFL? I understand the NFL is a whole different monster, right, but is there a way we can get that to have this presentation for these young stars to come in? There's been more pageantry with it, but obviously it's moved further in the direction since 98 to 2025, but we'll see, curious your thoughts.
I think the struggle is getting guys to show up. I think that's the biggest thing because nobody wants, with the uncertainty, obviously if you're if you're supposed to be the first 10 or 15 picks, you can show up and be pretty safe. I think it's the possibility of showing up and not getting picked at all that first day. They invite, I think, the top 50 to come, and a lot of guys just don't come. I think the time we were there, I think there might have been 12 or 13 guys, and one guy didn't get picked at all. And the best thing about it was he knew he wasn't, but he got invited. He's like, I'm day 2. I'm cool with it. I just wanted the experience. Because you got to – they treated you like you got there. You were in the All-Star games right there because they coincided with the All-Star game when they pushed the draft into the All-Star break. And you go over to the All-Star game workout, you're meeting all the big league guys. He's like, I just came here because they told me I could come. And I'm like, I'm not getting drafted today, but I'm getting really nice hotels. I got this nice food. I'm meeting big leaguers. I was like, I'm a day 2 guy. I'm cool with it. And it was great, but I think that's the thing is trying to get more guys to come. And I think that's MLB really talked us into it. Be like, hey, it'd be really awesome if you could come, because if you come and you talk about your experience and it goes well for you, then you can tell other players and so on and so on. So you've seen it over the years, more and more guys come up. And like you said, it's more fanfare than showing up at the MLB network in Secaucus and joining up there. And there's not a lot of fans or nothing. So I think they do a really good job. I just think it's on the players' comfortability, whether they want to travel to where it is and put themselves in a possible position of not getting picked and being on TV, like a Will Levis in the NFL, that type of experience. But I think they do a really good job of putting it out there and hoping that guys will show up. And the more guys that do show up, the better it's going to be. But there's so much uncertainty. Once you get past the 10, 12 picks, you can go anywhere. They can pick a high school kid that they were going to pick 5th and they can get cheap so they can spend the money later. It's just the way the draft works. It's so different than the NFL. Because there's money saving involved and it's not always the best player getting picked. And now you have NIL money from colleges that you have to deal with at the draft because these kids are now, if they're going to a big school, they're like, oh, the Reds are drafting me. They're going to give me this. Oh, Mississippi State, how much you giving me? Oh, all right. And they can go back and forth and with their NIL money in their draft. And it's like, when we got to that, it's almost, if you're a high school kid, you go to college, go 3 years, get it. And you get paid for 3 years and then go in the draft. So that also hinders it a little bit too, because you can almost use it as a way to get more NIL money from your school for them to get you to come to college. So it's a little bit different animal. I hope it does though, because we had an amazing experience.
So we covered a lot of ground as far as the shortstops go. We talked about your 2004 season, and we're talking about Jacob now, what he's doing right now. And the position has evolved dramatically. We look at players like Bobby Witt Jr., Ellie De La Cruz, Gunnar Henderson. As far as you, from the perspective of now watching through your son's eyes and also your experience playing at the big league level, where do you see the position going over the course of these next couple of years?
Yeah, I think, I mean, Bobby Witt's a prime example. He's one of the best players in the game. I think he's right up there in the top 4 or 5. Same with Lindor. You're almost in like when we grew up, we had that golden age of shortstop, and you had Vizquel, you had A-Rod, you had Jeter, you had Nomar. I mean,
Yeah.
I think that it was one. I think there was an All-Star game. I think maybe it was in Milwaukee where they took 6 shortstops because they were all just so good, and they just started playing them everywhere in the All-Star game. And I think you could be looking that there's some guys coming too that are pretty good. There's a kid from Milwaukee, not the kid there now, but another guy coming up. Like it's obviously a prime position to draft, and if those guys work out, they are major contributors when they get up to the big leagues. And because you got to be. I mean, the thing is, you got to be both good defensively and offensively. So you can't have one falter in order to be one of those guys. And those guys that we talked about are really good on both sides of the ball, and that's why we consider them superstars. Not just because they hit well, is that they can hold the position of shortstop. And so it's going to be fun to watch. This group coming in, the guys that have come in a little bit later. But I love watching Bobby Witt. I love watching Lindor. I love watching Dansby Swanson. Like, those guys are really, really good at their craft on both sides of the ball.
Do you think we've moved past the point of guys having to toil in the minors? Like, have we shortened the gap enough that these players, once they're good enough to play, they're coming up?
I think college guys for sure. I think college guys, I don't think there's any there's certain teams that will definitely take their times, and there's certain teams that will be like, might as well just get them up here and see what they can do. Obviously, the Angels are probably in the front line of that. I think with, was it Chanel? I think he was a month after the draft, month and a half, he was in the show. They did the same thing with Neto. So they kind of paved that way. We're like, hey, bro, like, we drafted you early. You're a college. You're a really good hitter. Let's just throw you in the show and see what you can do. Why wait? So I think that's a lot. I think it's organizational for sure. I don't think the A's projected that with Jacob and Kurtz. I just think that they just did what they did. I think I watched Kurtz in spring training. I was like, this guy's a big leaguer. Like, he is really polished as a hitter. He's struggling now, but he's supposed to. It's the big leagues. Like, he only had a month in the minor leagues. But he'll figure it out. He's a very smart kid, and he's very, very polished hitter. I loved watching his at-bats all of spring training. And we got lucky. We're in Gilbert, and Mesa's right 20 minutes away, so we got to get to see all the spring training games. I don't think the A's, are ready to move guys fast. I just think they both earn the right to go that fast. And I like that. Why slow a guy down? If he's going, just let's see how far he can get. And if he gets up here and struggles, we can always roll him down for a little bit. It's no big deal. But I don't think it's something where it's like, they mean to do it. I think the players earn it. And I think those guys, Skeens, Cruz, all those guys have earned the right to be up there and get their shot.
When you talk to Jacob now about the game, are your conversations usually more technical or more so the emotional side of the game, how to handle the grueling schedule and how to deal with slumps and things like that?
A lot of that. Honestly, being a dad coach is a very, very interesting path to navigate with your kid. And I got to the point where I never bring up baseball to him unless he wants to talk about it. So when we were not at GCU and he was and I wasn't, and we would come and visit and see games, I would ride with him in the car and I would say absolutely nothing until he would say, all right, what do you got for me? Something, if he has a good game, he's obviously not going to talk about it at all. He's just be like, all right, I got 2 hits today. It was awesome. But I had to learn to be a coach dad and separate the two. And our relationship is really good. The one thing I do now, first and foremost, is I make sure that when the game is ending, he has a text waiting for him that is 100% positive. No matter what happened in the game, I'm going to find something positive he did, because if he had a bad game, he needs to hear something positive because his brain's going to be going on the negative. The other day he went 0 for 4. He doesn't like going 0 for 4. I know he doesn't like going 0 for 4. You guys know he doesn't like going 0 for 4. So my text to him was, he made 2 diving plays. One of them saved a run, and that was the game they walked off the White Sox when Urias hit a home run. And I was like, fantastic job on the defensive side. You helped them win a game. Because I have to tell them the importance of it. When you're a shortstop and a catcher, you can win games by not hitting. If you're not hitting, you got to win games with your glove, because those 2 positions can win baseball games with your glove. I mean, all of them can, but especially at that position. And I'm really proud of the fact that he's never been a guy that carried his bat out to the field. Like, he's a really good defender. He takes a lot of pride into it. And so my thing to him, he's always going to have a text waiting for him, whatever, even if it's like, man, your cleats look awesome today. something positive that he can focus on to get him off of that. And then if he re-engages and wants to talk about his second at bat, or what did you think about that pitch I took? Do you think I should be aggressive there? That's all on him. That's whatever he wants to talk about. It could be technical. We've been talking. He's been through a little bit of a rut. It's nice because he's 2 for 3 today, so that's good. He had like a stretch where he was like 1 for 11, and it was like, what do you think? I'm like, man, Major League Baseball, hitting's the hardest thing to do. It's like all you can control is, getting to work, study your film, and then we started breaking down what he can do differently to help him stay inside the ball. We talk about the pitcher. Evaldi's pitching today, so we had a conversation about Evaldi last night on what you can expect. The Rangers pitch him a certain way, plus Evaldi equals this. And, we just have these really cool conversations. And I tell people it's really cool because they had this thing, and you guys have probably heard or read about it at some point, where athletes will write a letter to themselves on what would you tell your 20-year-old self. And it's really cool because I get to do that with a 23-year-old Major League Baseball player that's my kid, and I can share my experiences and my ups and downs with him and help him navigate through that and navigate through a rookie year, which is really difficult. Is very difficult when you're seeing people you used to watch on your TV. Like your rookie year, it's do whatever you can to be successful. You have no idea what these guys' pitches look like, what the shape of the slider is, what his sinker does. You don't know because you've never faced him before. So it's a grind to really get there and try to be successful. And you just try to get through that first year and try the best you can to help your team win. And then you learn.
Last year,
So
when he came up after tearing it up in the minors, I remember just I think a few days into his time in the majors, I believe he pulled up lame with a hamstring.
First game, first at bat.
First game. Okay.
Yeah.
I imagine the frustration had to be high at that point.
Yeah, it was tough. I was in the stands, and he got the base hit. It was a balk to get to second. Butler hit an absolute laser beam down the right field line, and it's your opening. It's your first game, so your adrenaline's throwing. So he starts busting it. I'm like, bro, it's a triple. You're on second. Like you can walk home. But he's going because he can't control that heartbeat. That's you're never going to have that type of heartbeat again until you see your kid one day being born. I think that's the only heartbeat that you can say are very similar. And he once he took that step after third base, I was watching him run and I knew right away. I'm like, dude, this is hammy. I did that so many times. I'm like, oh my gosh, what are the odds? First base hit, the dream is coming true for him. And comes around third after his first hit. So it was super sad, but he worked really hard getting back and get back. He was done for about a month and he did a rehab assignment. And he worked hard with all the trainers to get back and they did a great job. And now he has his routine because it's actually funny. This year is actually his first full season of professional baseball because last year he missed 2 months on 2 different stints of injury. So this would be the first 6-month season he's ever played in his life. And I think that's why, yesterday he got a day off because I think they're trying to ease him into it because normally your first full season is not in the big leagues. So I think the A's are doing a really good job with him and trying to make him learn about his body and what he needs to do to get over a 6-month season.
So looking at the perspective as we wrap up here, first of all, we want to thank you so much for giving all the time this evening with us and having conversations. There's a lot of conversation about the Athletics, their future, what does Vegas look like and breaking ground there and playing in Sacramento. What has been the general vibe from your end of things about being now involved with the organization? Now you're invested in what's going on there.
Dude, it is a really fun team to watch. This is a young core, and they're 15-15. They're playing really well, and we don't even have Zach Galoff back yet. He's going to be back in the next couple weeks from his hamate surgery. He's down rehabbing now in AAA. I say we, sorry. It's the A's. I just say we. But I'm telling you, this young core between, Butler, obviously Kurtz is up. I love Langoliers. I think he's a super underrated baseball player. He's a great catcher. He's a 25 to 30 homer catcher that nobody talks about. You got, I love JJ Bleday. I love Rooker. This is and those guys are, Rooker's locked up, Law's locked up. You get Severino has been an amazing clubhouse presence that I don't know if you saw that he got this big paycheck, but from what I get from Jacob is like he is the leader of the clubhouse. He is just all energy and all fun, and he's taking that ace of the staff part of the game. And even when he's not pitching, he's just a huge big teammate. And I think that all these guys that played together in the minor leagues that came up together, I think if they're able to keep these guys together, if it's me, I'm trying to lock up every one of those guys early like they did with Campbell, because they wouldn't be on the books till they got to Vegas anyways, where they're probably going to make a decent amount of money. So I'm trying to get these guys early. I'm trying to lock up all that's just me. But I'm like, man, if you can keep this group together somehow, which the only way you could is if you went to them early when they're a little bit cheaper, I guess. Yep. But man, if you can keep these guys together, like what that looks like when they do, I mean, what it looks like now is great. Can you imagine 2-3 years down the road, even this year, I think they can compete. They've been, I think that they have the type of talent Mason Miller comes in the game. Best of luck. I mean, that's disgusting. I mean, it's really, it's an accident if you get you get a hit off that dude, you're like, you should ask for the ball. I don't care where you are in your career. Because it is disgusting. I mean, the righty has on 100 plus a 92-mile-an-hour curveball that he can actually throw for a strike or spike. I'm like, dude, the game's over. The game's over when Mason comes in. He's amazing. So I just think that there's a nucleus here that's pretty darn special. So I'm really excited to be an A's fan for sure.
No, it's awesome to watch from the outside looking in of just what they're building there. And, we had conversations about the transition from Oakland and what it did to the fan base, but at the very least, you could be excited about that lineup 1 through 9, and locking Rooker up just kind of started this whole thing where it seems like they're invested in, and they spent the most money they've ever spent on a free agent with Severino. You mentioned they're doing the thing, they're spending the money. So it's awesome to see. And it's awesome to have, your son involved there. And now you can watch them grow as a whole unit. It's awesome.
For sure. It's exciting times. We're 1-1 in the 7th. So we need to get it. At least we got Evaldi out of the game. So,
so as we wrap up, we have, again, you gave us an hour and we really appreciate you giving us time on your evening. Final question. We try to come up with something cumulative to kind of jog the brain here. So if you had one more at bat in the big leagues and could face any pitcher from your era one last time, who would it be and why?
Oh man. Well, I think the right answer is be somebody I was successful off of, right? Because at least I give myself a chance to get a knock. But then you can say somebody cool that dominated you, but it's just a cool name.
You want the redemption. That's perspective. Yeah.
You know what? I am going to go the other route. I'm going to take a guy that you guys know well that I sucked against, and I just get one last try. So I'm taking on Pedro. Because that guy, nice. And it was older Pedro. I didn't even get young Pedro. I got older Pedro and still couldn't touch him. That dude threw me 12 sliders in a row at one point in the game because I kept missing it. And I just figured at some point he's got to come with the heater. And he just kept throwing it. So I want Pedro one last time just to be like, can I just please make solid contact off this dude? Because he was such a great, knowledgeable, smart pitcher. That's what made him so dominant. He had great stuff, but he also knew how to pitch. And I faced him a bunch with the Mets. And honestly, I had no chance. That guy dominated me. But I'll give one more. Give me one more chance.
The only problem with that answer is if he gets wind that you chose him specifically, he may bean you on the first pitch.
I'll take first. I'm good. I'll take first.
That's fair. That's fair.
I'll get Jason Bay behind me. He hits a double, I score, and we win. Awesome. I'm in.
Honestly, I'm looking at the numbers here, and I'm, again, going through all of it. So apparently, in 11 plate appearances, you had 3 hits in 10 at-bats, no extra base hits, walks, or strikeouts, which is notable because he has a career 167 batted average during his peak seasons for everybody. And do the math on that. It's 300 you're batting against him. I know it's a small sample size, but you got 3 hits.
No. We're not taking it out. Small, big, don't care. Taking 3. I had no idea. I never thought I hit the dude. So this is fantastic. That's
breaking
good.
news on here. So,
and honestly too, I had decent numbers off of Hall of Famers because I always thought like it was the coolest challenge to face the best in the game. Because you could always be like, the one thing I got Randy. I took Randy Johnson deep as not a home run hitter. That's cool. I got that, but I was 350 off of Maddox with like 40 something at bats.
Oh wow,
that's my But I loved facing those guys because it was a way to measure yourself. Like literally, This is the best in the world. You know what? He might dominate me. That's cool. But man, if I can battle with this guy, it was like the coolest thing. So I actually enjoyed facing the best of the best because it was like you had to bring your A game that day. If you had a B game, you were not going to be successful. That's why I like to bunt. I was a push bunter and I was a drag bunter. If those guys were nasty that day, I was just draw. I might have hit a bunt. I might have had a bunt on Pedro, to be honest with you. One of those hits has to be a bunt.
So I'm looking at your numbers against Randy Johnson here. So 23 times you faced him. You got 3 hits in 21 at bats, resulting in a 143 batting average. But notably, one of the 3 hits was the home run, as you mentioned. And there's a quote from a post game.
8 or 9 Ks.
It says struck out 7 times.
Okay, that's not bad. I'll take that.
But there's a quote from a post game here, and this is a quote from you. You can, I mean, if you remember saying this, it said he's 6'10". When he throws, it's like a right on top of you. He has a deadly slider and a changeup. It's uncomfortable at bat. And then you also went on to talk about the home run. I get excited at any home run I hit, but to hit a home run off Randy Johnson, that's something to tell your children about. That's something you tell your grandchildren about. That's pretty special. So you tell Jacob about it?
Yeah. Or I tell Steve in 2025.
Amazing.
There you go.
Yeah.
Good stuff here. But dude, we so appreciate you hopping on here. You're a great follow on Twitter. I'll give you the platform here to hype up everything else you got going on. Appalachian League, anything else you want the people to know.
No, yeah. I mean, Greeneville Flyboys, we have a lot of fun, but just, keep loving baseball and keep watching baseball. You guys do a fantastic job. I was happy to come on, and I'm glad we got to connect through social media. It was a blast. It was great baseball talk. I love baseball talk. So to get with you guys doing knowledge about the game and have fun doing it and having a good conversations, it's awesome.
Well, we'll definitely have you on again here at some point during the season if you're willing, and we'll have more conversations about where the Athletics are at, or just anything about what's going on in Greeneville as well.
Yeah, that'd be great.
All right, so we'll be back in 1 second with the rest of the show. All right, well, we want to thank Jack Wilson again for joining us here. A great guest in episode 80. We're about 20 away from 100. And what a guest to have, a former major leaguer, and a really great one at that.
Yeah, that was a fun conversation. Like, gave us a little bit of everything there. And like looking back, again, having him on here is surreal because I watched him so often as a big leaguer for many, many years, being a super solid defensive player. To get to talk ball with him was really, really cool.
It shows how far we've come as the podcast. Not Barry Horowitz and patting ourselves in the back over here, but 80 episodes in that we're having conversations with big leaguers. I mean, we've had people in systems, we've had great beat writers and great people involved in organizations, but to have a guy who donned a big league uniform and for 12 years and was a pivotal part of a lot of those Pirates teams in those years. And then we mentioned the 2004 season. It means a lot that he took the time here to have a conversation with us. And it was really awesome. I mean, like you said, it is surreal to have 80 episodes in that we're paving the way and doing what we do here. So we appreciate all the support out there. We do for everybody.
Yeah, and he's very modest. He told us that everyone wants to talk to him now because of his son. But I mean, like we just said, a 12-year career, you got to be a pretty incredible player to make it that long in the bigs. But it will be exciting going forward to watch Jacob's progress through the big leagues. I mean, he's got a long road in front of him, and hopefully a lot of good things coming for him and also the A's franchise as they, little by little move over towards Las Vegas.
So if you guys want to support the show, you can follow us on Instagram at Tablesetters and also follow us on the X Machine at Tablesetters. Devin's going to be posting some reels. Shout out to the last episode we had. That was Atlanta Braves centric with Ben Weaver with Tomahawk Talk. Did really well. I mean, they have a good following over there. I saw some of the reach that those reels had. I mean, upwards of 3,000 people. So if you guys are out there and listen to the episode and you're a Braves fan joining us for the first time, enjoying sort of our holistic conversations about baseball, we appreciate the journey. And shout out to Ben Weaver again. Go back in the archives and check it out. A really timely episode on the Braves. And Devin, we haven't discussed this off air, but are we coming back this week with a general episode, or are we bidding everybody adieu to until next week?
This is Wednesday night. We're recording this. Might have to play it by ear a little bit. Sometimes you have the 2 guests in a week. It can make the regular episode hard to fit in, but we'll see. We got to get back on the grind to get a regular episode in, because when you wait too long, all of a sudden there's a lot of stuff to look back at and talk about. So I'd say maybe we can squeeze one in, but if not, we'll try to get one out as early next week as possible.
So the one thing I do want to say, the 5-25 Rockies avoided making dubious history. They lost 16 of its previous 17 games, had been outscored by 78 runs. They avoided joining the 1988 Baltimore Orioles as the only team since 1901 to lose 26 of their first 30 games. So getting the win today was able to put them out of that distinction. But for you, we're not having the full conversation now. Is this Rockies team one of the worst we've seen? Is this possibly a worse team than we saw with Chicago White Sox last year?
I mean, yeah, based on the numbers, they are. That game was noteworthy for a few other reasons too. Chris Sale, first time he went past 5 innings, went 7 and struck out 10. So it looked more like last year's Chris Sale. And somehow the Braves still ended up losing that game to the Rockies. And I believe Chase Dolander's first or second win. But he had, he was having a rough time, but it looked pretty good today. The other thing is, so I believe I read it's either 4 or 5, only 4 or 5 teams in history that started 0-7 have been able to climb their way back to 500. And the Braves had a chance to do it already today. It would have gotten them to 500, and they would have been the fastest team ever to start 0-7 and climb back to 500. I mean, they're probably going to have another shot at that in a few days, to be honest. But that's pretty cool if you're a Braves fan thinking like, we started 0-7, but we're going to be the fastest team ever to climb out of that hole and get back to 500. And it doesn't surprise me. If any team could do it, that's one of the teams I would choose.
Yeah, I agree. And 0-7 at any point in the season, whether it's a streak in the middle of July or it's a streak at the beginning of the year, it just hits a little bit different when you don't have the wins on the left-hand side of the column. But we know the Braves are talented enough. We talked about it in depth last week. We're not going to get into it, but check out our episode with Ben Weaver. He gave us a lot of his time, gave us perspective of a Braves fan, remaining steady. And I think the fact that they do these daily post games, that he's able to have a level head of riding the waves of baseball, but also as a fan, you can't help but react. We all love this game and we watch our teams. And when your team loses a tough game, and your Mets lost a tough game, what was it, a couple days ago, blowing a big lead, it's hard to get off the mat as a fan. I can't imagine how bad it is for a player, but the best thing you can do is get up and win some games the next day. And that is baseball, Susan.
Yeah, it's the best thing about this sport is there's a game pretty much every day. So you can kind of shake it off and put on the next one. So long season ahead still. Last day of April, but long season ahead.
So if you guys also want to support the show, I also mentioned the social media stuff, but you go to Dugout Mugs and use code TS10 at checkout, save 10% on your order. Buy some of those mugs or any of the other stuff. They have bottle openers over there. Again, code TS10 would support us in a big way. Shout out to our sponsors over there at Dugout Mugs. We'll be back whenever talking baseball, maybe with an episode just about news. But we also, of course, will be back next week giving you guys at least one episode. We appreciate all the support. Leave a 5-star review if you can do that. Share it with your friends. Continue to grow the game of baseball and support players on their journeys. Go watch Jacob Wilson. Go watch Jack Wilson highlights, dude. That inside the park home run he had in that doubleheader got me fired up this afternoon for this interview. So shout out to Jack Wilson and the Pirates. And let's get some wins in Pittsburgh, dude. PNC is too beautiful a park to be having losing seasons. But I digress, Devin. Hope you're feeling better, dude. We'll be back next week, and we'll talk to you after a while.
High fly ball into right field. She is gone. In a year that has been so